Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Thomas, today I'd like you to look at an article from Gateway Pundit. It's entitled, "Get Ready and Pray to God. The time is now. The imposters are preparing the final act in their coup d'etat." Now, I have that link below for those who might want to look at this brief article. And did you have time to look at that?
Oh, of course I did, Betsy. I always look at anything you tell me to look at.
Okay. Well, this one caused quite a bit of alarm from one of our dear readers, and I'm just going to read a couple of sentences. To all TGP readers and all American patriots, we are informing you to prepare yourselves. This country is at a precipice. America is either going to be overrun by a power-hungry deep state, or it will survive one of the biggest attacks to its existence since the Civil War. We must all be vigilant and prepared. What say you on this piece?
Well, Betsy, that's true, but it's, about 2 years late. Crossfire Hurricane started in July of 2016, and Gateway Pundit is just noticing that the coup is coming to a critical stage. They're incorrect. The coup is not coming to a critical stage where we need to be scared. We need to be happy. The exact opposite. But unfortunately, Gateway Pundit has not been at the cutting edge of what's been going on. And so they didn't tell you, even before July 2016, what was going on, which we pointed out to you. The fake stories of the Trump Tower server, the fake stories of Felix Sater saying that Michael Cohen had a letter that through a backdoor means created sanctions for the Russians that was being snuck into the Trump campaign. Now think of that. Felix Sater, who we told you was a Russian spy working with Michael Cohen, who we now know is a very crooked lawyer, way more crooked than Trump knew. And what was he doing? Even to this moment, we are being shown that he was, every day, new things that he was doing that were quite crooked. So Gateway Pundit, you're a little bit behind times. The Mueller investigation, which is carried on from the Crossfire Hurricane headed by Peter Strzok, is indeed an attempted coup d'etat, but it is not being successful. It is being foiled.
I just want to say then, so this is an example of how you can read a headline that's in the news today where your news source is just catching up with where we have been taking you at the American Intelligence Media. So for a person who was just reading that headline, they would think, oh my gosh, can it get any worse than it already is? But really what it is these people are looking in the past and seeing now what's been going on.
They're just not very awake and obviously not very experienced. For instance, we talked about Horowitz. Now, one could cry and cry and cry that Aim for Truth and the American Intelligence Media and the Anonymous Patriots Conclave were 100% correct about that. No one else was. As a matter of fact, everyone from Q to many of our friends in other alternative news agencies all said, don't worry, Horowitz is going to save the day. Well, when Horowitz didn't save the day and no one was indicted, then people are upset. No, don't be upset. That just showed that the entire group of those people are part of a conspiracy and that they've shown their hand. They have shown who they are. Horowitz is completely corrupt. If anyone Horowitz created an agreement with Peter Strzok to let Peter Strzok choose which of the 55,000 messages, and by the way, there were hundreds of thousands that we have yet to see, both from Andrew McCabe, Comey, and all the other people involved, as well as the missing ones from Strzok and Page. But it was Strzok himself who made an agreement with Horowitz that he could choose which of the texts would be released and what parts would be redacted. And that's why what you say is very interesting. To use the excuse that they were lovers then created the ability for Strzok to say that he was following Stephen Boyd's advice from the Department of Justice when he redacted everything and didn't turn over anything. He redacted everything personal and didn't turn over anything that might have any relationship to their affair, as if that should be protected. That is a crime in itself. So, Gateway Pundit, you should have woke up a long time ago and been reporting this all along, as we were, even back at the time when, for instance, the attempted coup d'etat for President-elect Trump, that was a coup d'etat. When Andrew Weissman went in and stole their materials, that was an attempted coup d'etat on even President-elect Trump. Candidate Trump, total total frame-up job, total smear campaign, total weaponization of the Obama administration from the top all the way through. Many federal agencies, and we know who those culprits are. So what's going on? Those culprits have all been called out. They went and took jobs as pundits on news agencies. And as that happens, what did that do? It revealed that the mainstream media and the new programs I'm going to talk about in just a second, which we've talked about before, have already taken away free speech. But what you need to remember is, you don't know what Trump is doing. Let me just tell you something Trump just did so that you'll understand that people who are writing as alarmists to tell you that we are on the precipice of the deep state winning. No, we are not. We're on the deep state is losing. People don't understand this. Let me give you one example. This is not a Trump tweet, except in between the lines, which we decoded for you. Trump tweeted that this Christian minister in Turkey should be released. We told you what would happen. We told you immediately what would happen before it happened, that Erdogan, President Erdogan of Turkey, would then threaten him severely and say that he wanted Fethullah Gulen released and extradited back to Turkey. Well, we told you even before that, and when the first thing happened when Trump tweeted, that what Trump was going to probably do is put sanctions on these people through U.S. Marshals and the U.S. Treasury Department. What has now come out? Erdogan, this is so funny, it came out because they're angry. Erdogan has said, well, if you're going to put sanctions on my Minister of Interior for Turkey and another minister, but Süleyman Soylu is the one I'm focused on. If you're going to put sanctions on him, Mr. President, we're going to go and basically tear down Trump Towers in Istanbul. And so now it's on high alert and high security because this is a threat of the president of Turkey, who I've often called a madman and should not be part of NATO. As a matter of fact, Trump did this on purpose, as we told you. And I'll explain this even further because this is critical to see the way Trump thinks and where we're at in the stages of war on many fronts. 167 charter schools were taken over. Over $2.5 billion was stolen under the auspices of a group that was run by Fethullah Gulen here in America. And that group is called Hezmet, or FETO, F-E-T-O. Süleyman Soylu basically owns FETO, F-E-T-O, and Hezmet, because he was very close friends with Fethullah Gulen. So what has happened? Trump put sanctions on him, in essence, stopping the money flow out of the country and into the country through radical Islamic terrorists, because this is a terrorist organization, F-E-T-O, and quickly did, after we did an expose on this within the last few weeks, Trump quickly acted, tweeted one thing, knew exactly what Erdogan would do, because we predicted that even in what we were saying in our intelligence report about Fethullah Gulen and the way we should stop giving money to him and his organization and charter schools. And what happened? He knew exactly what Erdogan would do. And now Erdogan has taken it. So Trump put the sanctions on. Now Erdogan's taken it the next step to say, which he is, demonstrate that he is a radical Islamic terrorist. He's threatened a businessman's hotel in Istanbul, just so happens to be Trump. Because why? He is a fascist. Why are we defending through NATO a fascist in Turkey? What am I about to tell you? What's going to happen next? Trump just went over, got everybody to pay up some of their past due bills, buy a lot of weapons to defend themselves in NATO, and make agreements to quickly pay as fast as they can all the money that's owed. And we're talking over $138 billion. $33 billion he walked back from that meeting, the first meeting with NATO. Here's what's going to happen. NATO is going to have to collapse because they have a madman in Turkey, a complete insane man. But of course, you all didn't know, except through us, that Trump was baiting him. And then we told you what Trump would do, and he did it. So Hezmet and FETO And Fetchula Gulen, Trump gotcha.
The president called into the Rush Limbaugh show yesterday. The quote that I'm going to read you says, "Well, that's right, Rush. You have a lot of bad people in Washington." This is Trump talking. "We knew that a long time ago. Frankly, before I knew it. I had no idea how evil some of them are. But you have a lot of great people too, and outside of Washington, you have the greatest people in the world."
Isn't that interesting? Outside of Washington are the greatest. So basically, if you're in Washington, you're kind of tainted to begin with, aren't you? And even Trump and his family, as they've gotten in, they found out how much evil there is. And every word that they say, every look on their face, every piece of clothing they wear is scrutinized and then twisted by fake news.
Let's call it out. Fake news. There were a couple of tweets about that today that we didn't get to. But they're calling him out because now the media is saying that Trump is saying that all media is bad.
Remember when Rush Limbaugh was kind of the cutting edge of some people who are the Conservative Party. And now Rush is kind of falling behind.
Stale.
He's kind of falling behind.
Yeah.
He can't keep up. He
Kind
doesn't
of
even know.
grandpa-ish.
He doesn't even know what the Senior Executive Service is, or who Serco is, or who the Crown agents are, or who's actually manipulated the elections. Because he can't. How could he get into that and just have conversations with people? He's just a talk show host.
Yeah, well, he takes up 3 hours of your time. 3 hours that you could really be getting some real cutting news.
You can usually summarize his entire show in just a few minutes. And I like Rush, and I like anybody who's trying to fight for the truth. But what we're talking about here with the comment of, it's more than a comment. As we approach the 2018 election, as we approach the 2018 election, we are seeing Facebook again go into hyper mode and start controlling free speech and basically controlling what people see. Because really fake news is generated from a system called AVID, ISIS Management Leader Plus. And what it does is it controls every single prompter in the mainstream media, including Fox News. And what is on those prompters? If you look at all the news all at once, they're all saying the same thing in just a little bit different words, but look at the ticker tape below and you'll see it's all the same thing. Where is that coming from, you might ask? That is a system that was developed by a Brit named Lord Malloch Brown, who is a propagandist, and he has a system, a company called AVID. It's also called ISIS Management, and one aspect of it is called Leader Plus. And what these things do is it provides through Reuters, Thomson, and through the Associated Press, a synthesis of the news that's out there, and then it's given to these journalists who are not journalists. They simply read their prompters. They don't do any journalism whatsoever. They wouldn't know if what they were saying was true or not. They oftentimes say things that didn't happen and have to retract it, because how would they know? And I'm going to explain this in a minute, where that news comes from, but there's a system that controls that and now gives them exactly what to say, because Google, through the Department of Defense, has been hired with a thing called Digital News Initiative, and they have targeted 927 news agencies, and they're making sure everybody has the same uniform news being said pretty much at the same time and in the same way, and anyone who doesn't is being eliminated. 85 separate alternative news agencies and sites on the internet were closed in a matter of a very short period of time recently, some of them having as many as 4 million followers because of this system. And it's from the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Laboratory, which has already taken over Europe, and now it's taking over America. They, through George Soros, have infinite money to penetrate in through Google and Facebook and all the social media, including Twitter, which is one of the worst, with their shadow banning. And they are basically stopping free speech before we get to 2018, because they know that if they can't stop Trump now with some crazy imaginary impeachment, and then I don't know what they think is going to happen after that, but if they can't stop Trump now, they know he's going to win not only the next election, but the MAGA people and those who carry on, keeping America great, are going to continue because the Democratic Party is lost to socialism. It's lost now so far left to fascism, to anarchy.
They have no viable candidates.
None at all. And when they go out there to fight, who's going to be left? The best one they have right now is Joe Biden, the pedophile, we have him on film as a pedophile every time he gets near a child, especially a girl child.
Listen, what they have going for them right now are the ballot boxes, these rigged electronic election machines, whatever you want to call them. And that's what they're counting on to win these elections.
Yes, and in 2010... $265,000 was paid to Facebook to Dmitry Shevelenko, who worked out of India to create a template for winning the election. And at the same time, it was completely clamped down that the software that ran all the election machines in America, called Optech, O-P-T-E-C-H, is one company that can even be hacked by anybody using PC Anywhere. So our election machines, if they're digital, are completely vulnerable. So what you see right now is a huge push, supposedly, by the top intelligence agents. Christopher Wray, you can't trust him. Dan Coates, I'm sorry, Dan, I don't trust you anymore. We can't trust those people. So what do we see already? Facebook coming out saying, oh, gee, golly, we have people who are already putting up this negative stuff, and we can't tell if it's Russian, but it's election rigging again. It's election interference, election meddling. And then you look close, and what are they promoting? They're promoting abolish ICE. They're promoting anarchy, Antifa, Black Lives Matter. So already Facebook, again, every time dude Zuckerberg opens his mouth, he sticks his foot in it. He says that this is happening. We find out, no, it's not happening at all. And then we find out, of course, that any election rigging that was going on was done by Obama, the U.S. Digital Service, Eric Schmidt. Hillary Clinton, I just mentioned to you, the very thing that she created to make sure the election was rigged through Google, through the algorithms of Google, through the social media of Facebook and the manipulation of those social media. This is all very well known. So what we're seeing with Trump and what happened with Ivanka, they need to listen very closely. They make a huge deal, just like Gateway Pundit, because they woke up. They want to now notice there's a coup when the coup is almost been exposed completely. No one's gone to jail yet. Don't worry, folks, that isn't the way it works. It takes a long time to put someone in jail. But what happens is the exposure means that now Trump can act, and he's acting behind the scenes in ways that you don't understand. He is eliminating the senior executive service slowly and definitively. He has gotten rid of an Islamic radical fascist who was basically taking over the charter school movement in America by simply doing what we told you, using U.S. Marshals and the U.S. Treasury to simply put sanctions on people that you don't even know. And yet those are the very people who are the political machines behind these things. So instead of going after, like the FBI did again and again and never being effective, going after Gulen and his
they didn't want to kick him out.
Because
the FBI is run by the globalists.
Completely, and they spend more time covering up crime than they spend prosecuting it. So those people who say there's a lot of good people in the FBI, then come forward now and be a whistleblower, and please turn in your bosses, because they're all criminals at the top. We already know this. So we are not at the critical point that the deep state may win, and we need to pray, as this article says. We are at the point when we are getting so defined that when they go after Ivanka and Donald Trump for saying that the fake news is the enemy of the state, and yes, he also said the media, because he was shortcutting it. He's only said it 1,000 times, so he shortcut it. But when they asked Ivanka and tried to trip her up, they said, is the media? And as Trump's tweet said, she was correct. She said, no, the media is not the enemy of the state. Fake news is the enemy of the state.
Well, I want to speak about another enemy of the state and a place in Washington where I see as ground zero. And that would be right there on the desk of Jeff Sessions. That's ground zero right now. What's going on?
Jeff Benedict Arnold Sessions. He is a traitor. He is an enemy of the state. We've already given the evidence to show that he was part of the CFIUS approval of Uranium One, so he's protecting Hillary. He's not a Republican. He's just like a John Brennan. He is a campaign manager for Hillary Clinton and riding shotgun for her and will shoot at anybody. And but through what? Through obfuscation, through confabulation, through conflation, through counterintelligence operations against a candidate running for president, counterintelligence operations that moves to the FBI using the Department of State, the Department and the Department of Justice, and the James Clapper himself, the director of the Office of National Security. That means, yes, Susan Rice. That means the National Security Council. That means Obama. That means the Hillary Clinton State Department, the whole 7th floor, Jonathan Weiner. That means John Kerry, Victoria Nuland. We're only mentioning right here we've said this before. I want to extend it. Give me 3 dozen, let me take out 3 dozen people in Washington, D.C., and I promise you, the corruption will collapse. Those 36 people are now being called out by name, by us and by everyone else, for their crimes, and notice they're not being prosecuted. How long will that go on until there's a critical mass? That will be Donald Trump's second term. And the moment that he is elected in his second term, you're going to see we were already seeing a massive cleaning of the federal government and the federal agencies, including the intelligence agencies, right now. Whether you see it or not, folks, we're telling you, and just look, it's going on. Don't believe that Trump is about to lose to this coup. No, he is not. And it's just like, what are the few things they've been able to attack him on? Here's the reason he's not going to lose to the coup. He's not guilty of anything. There is no Russian collusion. There was no obstruction of justice. There can't be. Comey was his subordinate. Comey was the leaker. All of these things, all of the weaponized elements of Obama's entire administration could not take Trump down, and they're not taking him down now. And those people who are being alarmist about it need to sit back, chill out, and do your homework, because that is not true.
Thomas, let's go back to Avid. I don't think you finished that thought about what's happening here in the media.
Well, I don't want to bore our readers who have read so many of our intelligence reports, but we'll try to summarize some of this.
Well, these are listeners. This is YouTube.
Oh, well, there we have it. So, listeners, here's the deal. As you know, probably know, mainstream media is owned by basically 6 large corporations.
And this includes fake Fox News.
Absolutely. And as they have grown into huge conglomerates, it's basically literally come down to 6 people. And if you want to look very closely, you can even notice that all 6 of them are very closely aligned with one another. Now, why do I say that? Because what I mentioned earlier, that there is a program that is basically controlling our news in America, including Fox News, the only supposed Republican station, or slightly conservative. Incorrect. You want the no-spin zone, you're going to have to come to places like Truth News Headlines. Because what's going on, all news is being controlled and is being filtered down into systems that say if it's true or if it's not true. And if it's not true, if it's not the standard version that Soros wants, because Soros is paying for this through the Atlantic Council, the money's already come. The money went to Facebook, it went to Google, it went to the Department of Defense, and it's already been incorporated. Why couldn't Trump stop that? He didn't even know it was happening. And senior executive service members make all decisions in all federal agencies.
I like to call them operatives.
Yes, operatives. Yes, because they are really the SS of Obama.
Yes, and they're that hidden army that's destroying America from within.
So,
and we need to have more people talking about this. And the news is not going to talk to you about it. What do they call it now? Senior Leadership Group?
Every name except for what it is, SES. They call it Senior Leaders of Agencies. They'll call it Agency Senior Leaders. They'll call it everything but what it is, and no one wants to address it. We gave a challenge when it was the month of SES awareness, and a lot of folks came forward, but then a lot of folks revealed that they were globalists, and they refused to come forward and notice that some of them have simply dropped off the face of the earth, and they weren't taken off. They dropped off.
They just dropped off.
And there's reasons for that. And there's other reasons. There's reasons why other people, still big-name people in alternative news, still won't address the senior executive service. Because why? They are working for them. They're actually retired from the senior executive service. They get paychecks from this very organization.
And from the Global Engagement Center.
So let's go back. Mainstream media is owned by 6 major corporations. Who owns those corporations? The same people who own Reuters Thomson. Thomson's been added. Reuters, to begin with, was owned by who? The Reuters family. Who bought it? The Rothschilds. Then it was used as their propaganda vehicle for manipulating markets, currencies, and information for stocks and purchasing things, because they were basically yellow journalism, telling people what to believe, in some cases literally creating wars that weren't even there, just as yellow journalism did here in America. So what were these? These were propaganda rags for banksters and for brokers. I like to call them warlord bankers and brokers.
And they didn't give up these channels just magically. Of course they kept them. They used them.
Absolutely. So who provides news to the mainstream media at this point? 2 groups, Reuters Thomson and the Associated Press. The Associated Press is a cooperative. It's made up of the 6 corporations that own the mainstream media. Isn't that a coincidence? So to say that they are not owned by the warlord bankers and brokers is simply just one step away from the truth, because they are, if you look at who owns those companies. So what am I saying? I'm saying that every speck of news that you're receiving, certainly from a television, from a radio, including NPR and others, because look into who funds NPR. Look, that's why Trump defunded it. But the point is, if you're hearing the news, if you're seeing the news on your computer, unless it's alternative news that you went out and you sought, it has already gone through this system called AVID, ISIS Management. And what it does is it filters it down to make sure that everybody's saying the same thing that has already been screened. No news agency now has any investigative journalists. There's no journalists. All they do is they have parrots who read things. And if you tune into all the channels at once, as we've shown you in some of the videos that Betsy has posted in Truth News Headlines and her team, again and again, same time, same exact narrative, practically the same words, same alarmism, same lies. Aha! We have a law against that. Ethics Act.
Yeah, but we also have a law in place that says it's legal to propagandize against Americans.
Only if the government is doing it. Well, what I'm going to point out now is something we just discovered. The conclave has revealed this, and it is the following. If you know you are promoting lies, and you are in fact supposed to be a public company, even a corporation, and you are doing public announcements, and you are basically being allowed by the Federal Broadcasting Commission, FCC, all of these agencies, and especially the Global Engagement Center and the Department of Defense Board of Broadcasting Governors, if you're being allowed to do this, okay, but you're doing it not as the military, you can't propagandize. That's illegal. So these corporations, in fact, have a monopoly, and the monopoly is this company called AVID, ISIS Management, Leader Plus. And what they do is they basically filter down, condense the news, turn it into lies. They know it's lies, and they have a monopoly, and it is propaganda. And it is illegal propaganda because it is not done for the sake of a military purpose for national security.
Well, what if the military has contracted these fake news media to do this?
Well, they already contracted the Global Engagement Center to do that. $76 million to a British company, Strategic Communications Laboratories, during the 2016 election.
Which is affiliated with Cambridge Analytica, for those following that.
And that's the Privy Council, the Queen's Privy Council, and Jeffrey Patty. And we've already demonstrated
and Stephen Halper and Christopher Steele, right back down to the corruption in Washington, all the way back up to the Queen.
And so the conspiracy with the dossier to basically meddle in the elections, basically rig the elections, and also through the mainstream media that was completely complicit in it. They were being given briefings by Christopher Steele with the approval of the FBI, the State Department, the Justice Department, and the CIA. Were giving briefings to all the news agencies on the Trump dossier that they knew was fake, and it was never supposed to be released. It was just supposed to be the smear campaign. So that's how pervasive this was. So now that we know this, and now that we know that Fusion GPS actually paid, and we predicted long before that that's what had happened, had paid people like Franklin Furor, or people like Alvy Watkins, people like all these different media people with BuzzFeed, with Yahoo News, Isaacoff, all these people, they were paid. They were paid with our tax dollars to be in a war against Donald Trump, candidate Trump, Trump-elect, and President Trump. And now to say that coup is still continuing with Robert Mueller, but it's fizzling out. And in the end, it's just going to be a report. It was supposed to be the coup to unseat Donald Trump with the George Soros color revolution through impeachment. It didn't work. In fact, it's going the opposite direction. Even Nancy Pelosi says that Bill Steyer and his hundreds of millions of dollars for his, which should be illegal, political movement to impeach the president. It's unbelievable that these people use their tax donation to create an NGO, non-government organization, that then does their political bidding. Same thing for George Soros. Same thing for the Koch brothers. Is that how you say their name? But they were Republican. Now they've gone Democrat. This should be illegal.
No, but they've always been globalists. They were just tricking you. They use the Republicans for their globalist agenda. Now the MAGA Republicans are awoke, and so they go over to the Democrats. Did you see that they're even talking to Bernie Sanders? They'll go with whoever will push their globalist agenda.
And so Trump is right to say that the mainstream media is the enemy of the people. But the way that he's going to go after them is just like the way he went after Fethullah Gulen, and the way he's going after President Erdogan, the madman of Turkey, who was complicit with the crimes in Syria every step of the way. Matter of fact, he was one of the planners, along with Barack Obama, to create that war, that civil war, which has killed, well over 500,000 people. That's just, some of the 2 million people, or well over 2 million people, that Obama is personally responsible for killing. But they want to give Trump a hard time when they can't find a single thing to hang on Trump, though they weaponized all of the intelligence agencies, the FBI, everyone that could possibly be mobilized by corrupt Obama and corrupt Hillary and corrupt John Kerry and corrupt Loretta Lynch and all corrupt Eric Holder. They couldn't put a dent in Trump. As a matter of fact, he has now reached the point that he is considered, in 18 months, the best president in modern history, and Barack Obama is now, according to even these polls that are coming from actually leftists, say that Obama is considered to be the worst president actually in U.S. history, but they say definitively in modern American history. So what does the mainstream media tell you? The opposite. So what's happening to them? They're the enemy of the state. Once these people have been declared enemy of the state, then it's just a matter of time. He is the commander-in-chief. And so it is illegal what they're doing. It's just that it hasn't been made illegal. That's why he met with the head of the New York Times the other day. And the New York Times said, please don't call us the enemy of the state. Please. And he said, but you are. James Comey had institutionalized leaks to your New York Times and hides under the cover of immunity from Robert Mueller, who was another person who leaked to you constantly. And to this very day, his special counsel investigation has had thousands of leaks. Institutionalized. If there was one, it needed to be closed down because it was supposed to be secret. But no, the New York Times, Carlos Slim, friend of Frank Giustra, friend of Bill Clinton, and totally corrupt. What are these? These are propaganda agencies for warlord bankers and brokers.